So on today's show with The Corner with Kamil Syed, we've got a guest who's a Western Sydney proud native. He's had over 80 amateur fights. He's 10-2 as a professional with 4 knockouts. He's won the WBF Australasian Super Welter title, the WBA Oceania current champion, a proud fiance to Brianna, father of Miles and Bowie. Sound like I'm doing a eulogy. But yeah, Koen Mazoudier, welcome to The Corner.
Thanks, Camille. Good to be here, man. Awesome introduction. I like it. You missed the WBC Australasian as well, but other than that, beautiful. That's the best intro I've had so far.
Yeah, well, it's the first mistake I've made. Hopefully it's the last.
Nah, you'll be good, mate.
Mate, so thank you for being here as well, obviously taking the time out. I just want to go back over, before we get into your fights and your career, take me back to Koen Mazoudier as a kid. If we're going back, so he's 27 now, go back 17 years, 10 years ago, I'm in school with you, what's Koen like?
Man, I was always a nice kid and like that typical, like, especially when I was a bit younger, a little bit of bullying and all that sort of stuff, because I was such a nice person generally, I think, and just easy going. That's why I was sort of brought up with really good, loving parents and easy going, nice person. It sort of was like that through school, but always had that super competitive, athletic nature to me. You know what I mean? So I was always playing different sport, always trying to win whatever I was doing. And yeah, man, I've always had that sort of personality where I like to live life as much as I possibly can. And that's where boxing comes in, I guess, is, when you're in the ring, is you can't be more alive than in the middle of a fight, I don't think. So like when I was young, I started boxing it when I was I started training in the backyard with Dad when I was 13, walked into a gym at 14, had my first amateur fight at 15. Before that, I played plenty of other sport. But that whole period, those early days, I was training, doing my thing, but just as I lived my life, man, like I sort of always had in my head world champion. As soon as I started boxing and watching the sport, I always sort of had that thought in my head, but it just at that time seems too big to be something that you'd really voice or that you'd really attach to. So I was a pretty like, normal kid just doing my thing. Yeah.
So it sounds like as a child you were quite, obviously normally grew up in a normal household. There wasn't much volatility there. You were quiet, it sounds like, not a troublemaker. So pretty much the opposite to a lot of fighters, and the way people get into fighting is usually they're either getting bullied or they're the aggressor. They've got this aggressive nature to them, but you didn't really have that, did you?
No, man, I had a really good upbringing, bro. I'm very lucky, and like it's something that as I've learned, as I've gone on, like the history and like different things in my family. My parents did such a great job to keep me in such a loving, good bubble. Where my Dad's dad was raging alcoholic, and he had anger issues and all those different things, and there's a lot of addiction and different things through my family. My parents, I'm very lucky to have had a really normal, stable childhood, man. And just the typical little things that kids go through. But other than that, pretty happy childhood.
Yeah, we can start to see with people who have grown up stable in life, especially in their early childhood, you start to notice that to be an elite level fighter, you need to have stability in your training camps, and everything's regimented and habitual, so you need a fair bit of stability. So as you have grown up in a stable environment, I'm assuming that helps you a fair bit in your training camps and leading up into your fights because you're stable and you're disciplined.
Massively, man. And like my old man's my second in the corner. He's always been there in my corner. My mum's super supportive. And it's funny, like, because that's the thing, like growing up, especially as I got a little bit older and I got more perspective on the world and I had like my first sufferings and losses and things like this, I started to see suffering as like a sort of superpower in a way, and sort of felt like I'd think to myself, like, how can I do anything or make it? How when there's these little these Mexicans fucking sleep in tent to a room and no money, and they're doing it for their fam, their whole, whatever else. And then like, as I sort of went on with it, I realized that the power of choosing to do it when you could do anything else is more powerful than having to do it, in my opinion.
Of course.
So like that's something that I've just like continued to grow with, and I've continued to push my boundaries and limits with, and just thought like, you see people starting shit old places and shit positions and do nothing. You see them starting shit positions and do everything. And the same thing, you see people starting with great upbringings and everything given to them and do nothing with their lives.
Of course.
And there's nothing I respect less than people that do that. Like, because in my opinion, like that's the thing, I've been given this opportunity and the physicality, the mind, the people around me in a situation where I can do great things. And if I don't, it's not only an embarrassment to myself and the people that are directly around me, but it's an embarrassment to my like ancestors, man, and my like the millennial of people who have gotten to where I've gotten. Like I
Yeah.
can just imagine my ancestors looking down at me. If I'm, the times that I have been a bit of a bludger or couch potato, like, well, what are you doing, bro? Like we went through surviving tigers and a disease and ice and shit for you to be sitting here.
Yeah.
And that's when I look at people wasting their lives away now. I'm like, bro, you got no fucking excuse. It doesn't matter where you start, and it's just about where you're going.
I think a lot of people don't realize that right now, if you're living generally a normal life, we're probably in the 1% in history who have existed, in the top 1%. But as we move forward, I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit of your pro fights. Now, I hope you don't dodge me on this one. I've asked you this before and you've dodged me on this one. But your fight with Billy Cliff, you stopped him in the 6th round. That was a WBA Oceania interim super welter title. You stopped him in the 6th round. And then one thing that always struck me is that you were in the back rooms after the fight, skipping. You were still training. Why?
Look after the body, bro. There's no task that's complete and then it's done. It's a continuous growth, bro. People that get to, this is sort of what I was sort of talking about before as well. People get to 15, 18 and think this is where the nurture's done. There's nature and nurture, and people think they get to 15 or 18 or whatever age and think, oh, I'm done. I'm a person now. And that's not what I believe, is that we're not a thing, we're a process. So at any point that you go, oh, cool, I've done something, now it's time to stop, you're going backwards. So for me, when I finish my fight, man, I've got to go look after my body still. I've got to cool down, make sure I do all my stretching and everything so that I feel better the next day and I can get back into training as quick as possible. If I still do that up until the last fight, I might have had a beer as well in the backstage while I was skipping last fight. But, those rewards come with the work, and then just keeping I'll always preach consistency and just showing up, you know what I mean? And it's a rule to me as much as anything, you just finish the job and stay consistent.
Yeah. Well, to me, it showed, as you said, it shows for you consistency and moving on, recovery, letting your body heal. To me, it showed a champion mindset. And it reminded me of, you've probably heard the story where this is a little bit different but similar. Muhammad Ali, when he lost to Spinks, when he lost his title to Spinks. So that night, the legend is that because he lost, he went, after a 15-round fight, he went running that night. And obviously, we all know what happened. He beat him in the rematch just before he went off the edge and went into retirement. But it was that champion's mentality of, it's not over. It's not done. Even though you've won the fight convincingly, your job isn't done. You're literally living the lifestyle 24 hours a day. You're training, you're back into training. You've just finished, you're back in. So I love that. To me, it demonstrated a real champion's mindset. And I kind of want to talk about the Camilleri fights. So they've obviously been, by the time you have the next Camilleri fight, you're going to have 4 hard fights in a row. Wade Ryan, Camilleri, Wade Ryan, which is unbelievable. Not many people in Australia are taking hard fights back to back to back. And admittedly, you lost the first Wade Ryan fight. If you lost that first Camilleri fight, that puts you in a really dangerous position because it shows that you're not making it at domestic level. So where do you go from there? So talk me through your mindset after the loss and leading into the first Camilleri fight. Did you feel the pressure of, oh God, I need to perform or I'm going to lose everything?
Yeah, massively, man. Definitely. Like I knew that it was a make or break sort of fight, and that either I was going to lose to Camilleri and I was going to pretty much cap myself at that Australian sort of level or in that Australian competition, or I was going to beat him and break through to that. And I see every fight as, especially this Wade Ryan rematch, I have that same mentality that if I can't get past Wade, how am I going to go to, where I want to go in the world? The mentality around it, man, is just like, I've learned to I continue to be getting more and more comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, learning to use fear and these things that people generally say is something they want to avoid and get away from, is something that I want to move towards and that excites me, and that's just learning about like the ego, about the mind and what actually is influencing you and taking you the right way. But for me, man, whenever the thing that makes me the most uncomfortable and is the biggest challenge, I'll jump at and go towards. And that's been a learned process, you got to fail and continuously learn what the cycle is. You take a challenge on, you pass, you get past it and you grow, or you fail and you grow. And then it's just that cycle. So as much as it's that and understanding that that's the process, I think it's just, as I said, I like to live as much as I possibly can, man. Like if the challenge isn't there and there's no fear in my heart, like I'm not living. I need to have that little bit of fear.
The adrenaline.
The adrenaline, and the risk. You know, I've got it tattooed right here, bro. No risk, no reward.
Yep.
I've had that tattooed on me for years, and whenever I try to make a hard decision or I'm sort of stuck, I think like, fuck, if I'm not risking, I'm not living. You know, there's gonna be no reward if you don't take risks. This is how the universe works.
Are you able to detach yourself from that persona when you step outside the ring?
Yeah,
when you're with your family, are you able to detach yourself from that persona?
Definitely, man. Like, it's something that took me a long time of like, especially I had kids pretty young. You know, I had my first baby at 22, 23. Like I've been fighting my whole life, and the whole way along fighting, I'm also maintaining a relationship with my missus and my friends, and then, you know, working in corporate retail and all these different aspects of my life where there was periods where I would come home to my family and be malicious Koen Mazoudier. I was being absolute kind of a person, you know what I mean, and not the right person at home.
Yeah.
And times where I'd go to the gym half asleep and or too relaxed and too friendly, and it's definitely learning to split those parts of your personality up and really cement them in the right place is massive. It's
definitely a continual journey. You're never satisfied. You're never finished with the product. You're always moving, and it's malleable. You're always learning. But with I also want to move into the the end of the first Camilleri fight, because there's a moment there where the decision's announced and it's just raw, pure emotion where you've just let go of the ref's hands. Fuck yeah. Just a raw, pure emotion. Can you tell me, it's a bit of a generic question, but can you tell me what that moment meant to you?
Yeah. Man, it meant fucking heaps. Like the amount of sacrifice and hard work and time, people see that. And again, man, it's like generic cliche shit. It's what I say to everyone. It's all the generic cliche things. There's a reason they're cliche, because it's true. Like, I put so much time and effort and failed and been fucked over and had so many injuries and things go wrong to finally get to that period where I felt like I was where I should be. You know what I mean? I've been boxing for 11 years. I'd had 80 amateur fights. I'd lost 20 of them. I'd never won an Australian title. I'd broken my hand 6 times. Like, I've had that many injuries and just fallen short by a point, or having a decision not going my way that I should have gone my way. And, you know, for us to get to that first Camilleri fight, so even to get to, say, the Billy Cliff, Wade Ryan fight, we didn't have any support really. You know what I mean? I've had no support pretty much, other than I've had my team, my trainer from day one, Rodney, Williams, and my dad, Dean.
You've always been the B-side.
I've always been the B-side. We've done that on not necessarily purposely. It's how it's fallen in a way, because I've just missed out on things, those accolades that would get the sponsors, would get the promoters, would get the people excited. So I just always miss out, and would put us in a position where we were having to create and make our own pathway, which has turned out to be exactly how I want it to be. You know what I mean? So when we went into that Wade Ryan fight, that was the first time we had a backing of my manager, Dreamtime Promotions, Jared and the boys there, which got the big opportunity and put the fight together. I failed. I fucked up. It didn't go to plan, and it didn't happen. You know, my mind wasn't there, and we lost that one. The first Camilleri fight, it was not long after Christmas period. I'd been training my ass off the whole way, and then I got to a point where I'd been bludgeoned and sort of feeling like nothing was going on. My manager was gone, like basically we weren't in touch with him at the time. And then I messaged the matchmaker. I saw that card come up with all these super welterweight fights. I had Joel Camilleri, Ben Marnie, Wade Ryan, Tim Zhu, had a bunch of super welterweight fights, and I messaged him and said, if any one of these guys pull out, I'll fight any of them.
You reached out yourself?
I reached out to the promoter, to the matchmaker, and I said, if any of these dogs pull out, I'll fight any of them. The card got moved, and they called me about 4.5, 5 weeks out, and I was as a not trainer at all, and they said, do you want to fight Camilleri? And I said, 100%, no doubt. And so, like, that's the thing, that whole journey of everything going wrong so many times, and the doorways not being there, or feeling helpless and hopeless and whatnot, to finally get there, to hear the scorecards be read one way to him when I knew I beat him. I don't care what anyone saw or thinks, because in there you feel what happens, you know? And he's flopping around and doing his style, so it makes it a bit harder for people to see what's happening. But in there, I knew I'd won every round almost. So to have that announced, to hear that and knew, and know I'd got that green WBC belt, and then I'd really cemented myself like amongst the top guys in Australia. Yeah, man, it was
ecstasy.
Ecstasy. And as I said, the first time in my career, man, I've won 6 state titles, silver medals at nationals, all these different things and whatnot. And people can look up to. I know people look up to me and wish they were where I was. But that was the first time in my career I was like, I'm actually where I think I should be in my career after I beat Kamil that first time. You know.
And I felt what solidified that was obviously the rematch. Any questions that anyone had, even though the scoring in the second match was terrible, but the second match with Camilleri really solidified your position in Australian boxing, because I haven't even seen Tim Tszyu hurt Camilleri that bad. I haven't seen anyone hurt Camilleri that bad. The 9th and 10th round, you were close to getting him out of there. And one element that I really want to touch on in that second fight, and it's really underrated in Australian and world boxing, was you in between rounds. You're literally there. You're not taking... You can hear the commentators scream, saying he should be taking instructions, his corner's quiet, but you're literally in a state of calm. You're controlling your breathing. You're in a meditating state. You're controlling your breathing. You're not taking any instructions yet. You're getting your heart rate down. And then when you're ready, then you take the instructions and the water. So is that something you've always done? Or how did this meditation come about?
Yeah, it's a learned practice, man. Like, I think from being in some of my darkest places and being a bit helpless is what actually led me to meditation and breathing work, breath work and cold exposure and these different things where I was just like trying to get out of my own head and out of, you know, these negative voices and things that everyone experiences, and just figure out how to be more present and how to be a better person for myself and for others, you know? So that's what meditation's taught me. It's been a practice over years, man, that you know, I'm obsessed with this sport. I'm obsessed with this sport and getting better and being better at this sport. So when I'm practicing meditation and breathing and all these different things, I'm reading about being present and all these spiritual practices and different things. It's all encompassing towards this one goal of knocking someone out, you know, and being a better person for my family. They're my two things that matter the most to me. Myself, my own self-value and achievement to myself, my own version of success, which is at this point boxing, and then my family's happiness and well-being.
Of course.
So that practice of meditation and then applying it in the sport, you know, running, doing all these things where you practice the breathing and the mind and all these things. Yeah, it's a practice thing to get there. And when I'm in the ring, being able to reset each minute, each round, I learned that like it's such a power that not only I'm controlling my mind, my body, but I'm slowly drowning the person that's in front of me too, because they can see it and they can feel that. They can see that they're coming out to a fresh person every round that's hungry and wants to kill, and they're slowly fading. Technically, they're not able to touch me. As that Camilleri fight goes on, he's technically falling behind. I'm beating him in every part of the ring, and he can see in my demeanor and my eyes that I'm hungrier than him and that I'm there, more present there than him. There was, I think, around round 7, 8 in that fight, where, man, I was practicing my round breathing. People talking to me, this music. Dad poured water on my face. It's dripping down my face. And I remember there's such an intense feeling, but there's so much going on. I'm trying to control my mind and everything. And I could feel that little fucking weak cunt in me thinking, oh no, oh no. And I just said out loud, fuck yeah, I fucking love this shit. Let's fucking go, I love this shit. And Ron said, yeah. And Jimmy and I jumped up and I thought, I'm going to knock this cunt out. And went out there. I don't know if you want me to swear on this much, but I apologise. But
go for it.
You did mention I'm from West Sydney, so I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I got up and So, and those last 2-3 rounds were my best rounds, and that's the thing. I said I drowned. I love that feeling of drowning someone and seeing someone's soul disappear in front of you. On a normal scale in normal life, man, I'm such a humanitarian. I love people, you know. But when someone says they're better than me at the thing that I've put my whole fucking life into and like every day dedicate myself to, someone says they're better than me, and especially when Camilleri disrespected me and outwardly said he should be able to stop me easy and all of these different things, I thought, I'm going to go rip this cunt's head off. And if someone, there's the bear you want to poke and the bear you don't want to poke.
Yeah.
And this is something I've loved about this whole meditation aspect, is learning about my mind and people's minds and learning when to poke that bear or when to be their friend. So, yeah, Wade taught me that himself, you know. There's all these different lessons and things that you learn, as I said, in boxing that relate exactly to life.
Of course, boxing, as we've said before, boxing is a metaphor for life. It sounds like you've got like what a lot of great fighters have, is that split personality. And now you're learning how to detach it when you're with your family, learning how to switch it on when you're in the gym and on fight night. But I want to talk a little bit, take you back a little bit more. So now you're understanding how to conceptualize that personality, how to detach it, when to turn it on, when to turn it off. In times where you haven't been able to understand it, so when your losses with Luke Woods and your loss with Wade Ryan, the first one, how deep did you go mentally? Because you're so invested in this game How deep and how dark were the afterthoughts
The
of the losses?
Wade Ryan one wasn't too bad because at that point I lost enough and I learned the process that to be, I knew that it would become good. I knew that life would become good. When I lost to Luke Woods, that was the darkest period in my life after that. I was doing a lot of dumb shit coming into that fight. I didn't realise that I was, in a bad mental state coming into that fight.
When you say dumb shit and
drugs and not
Before
taking
the
the
fight?
sport seriously. Yeah. The week of the fight, man, I was eating edibles and doing different drugs and different things all the week of the fight, and I lost that fight, which in my opinion, I won, but I deserved to lose willingly because I didn't put. This is what the universe does. If you don't put everything in, you don't get everything out.
Did you respect the game?
I didn't respect the game. I didn't respect myself. I didn't respect my opponent. And I lost that fight, and that was my first professional fight and professional loss. I lost to Luke Woods in a very close fight in the amateurs too to go to the Commonwealth Games. So it was really crushing. And after that, man, I hit drugs even harder, and just was detached more from reality and went into a real deep depressed state. And I'd be happy on the outward, and because I care for others and want to be the best person I can for others, I would outwardly probably look okay. No one really knew anything was wrong, but I'd be crying myself to sleep most nights and just doing, as I said, just ridiculously overdoing on drugs and these different things. Where I talk about it now. I tell people the things that I'll break down what I was doing in a night or a night. And like people that are party animals go, why? I'm like, I don't know. I just was trying to have fun. I was trying to feel better, I guess. And it basically accumulated to a point at the beginning, right at the beginning of 2020, right at the end of 2019, end of 2020, where I ended up in a mental ward, basically. My missus had called the ambulance on me because she was worried about me. She was worried for my health and I was acting crazy and all these things. And I'm never a violent person outside of the ring. I really would never hurt myself or anyone else. But I was just, I was basically schizophrenic is what it seemed at the time. So she called the ambulance. On the phone, they asked her if there was anything else they should know at the end of the conversation. She said, he's a professional boxer also. So now the police are coming instead of the ambulance. So then about 8 police officers rock up to my house, and I'm just there, in my opinion, chilling. And 8 cops come to my house, and they're shaking pepper sprays and taking their batons out and shit. And I'm at the point, feeling great. I thought I was great. And anyway, so I got taken back into the paddy wagon to hospital, and then spent a week in this mental ward. It was basically a jail for mentally ill people, violently mentally ill people, where you're not allowed outside for certain hours, and they're doing all these different things. So man, I went to a really horrible place, and that was right when I had my little boy at that stage, and the stress that I put on my family, on myself, is just I can't even believe that I was the same person.
Can you talk me through a little bit of the impact that the mental hospital, the police, the drugs, the alcohol, the impact that had on your family, your partner? As you said, your Miles was just born at that time, and your parents, the people who were closest to you. What type of impact did that have on them, and even the people in the gym who look up to you?
Like, at first, it was horrifying for everyone, obviously. I come from a nice family. Everyone, they know the go of how the world works. They know people out here partying. They're not, but they'd seen someone, obviously, who has been a successful person in business, good athlete, etc., in a really low place, in a mental ward and hooked on drugs, my missus didn't think I was going to come out of those situations. You know what I mean? My missus was really, really worried that I'd sort of lost my mind and that she was going to be on her own with the kids and the stress and heartache I put on my mum and my missus and my family there is something that I'll never really forgive myself for probably. But I think what it gave me was a big thing. It gave me was perspective of like where I don't want to be and where I could very easily be. It made me understand that it made me have a lot more empathy for everyone and myself, because I understand that the high, you can be a superhero, you can be a complete absolute loser and be the same person. and everyone's gone through their different struggles and demons. And all the time when you see someone that is down low in the dumps, it's usually for a reason, and there's usually something they're battling with, or they've been brought into that situation. It's not just for no reason usually, you know.
Yeah.
So in the unfolding and future parts coming after that sort of experience, I think people started to respect me more and to understand that thing more. And I always sort of try to look at myself as like a bit of a beacon of like just how life works, like sort of thing.
Bit
you
of
know
hope,
what I mean?
would you say?
Yeah, like hope, not like a hope. I don't want to say like pretend I'm some like preacher. I just like people. I know myself. I've been pretty fucking low, like pretty much as low as you can go. Like they didn't want to take me out of the mentals, but I fought to get out of there, bro. They did not want me to leave. They wanted me medded up. They wanted me whatever. They had me on. I was schizophrenic. There was things that I experienced that didn't happen. There's things that I know I experienced them. They didn't happen though. I know they
When
didn't
you
happen.
say schizophrenic, define schizophrenic, or your interpretation of it, what you experienced.
There were events that happened.
Yep.
There was like a video in my mind. I lived them that didn't happen. So like, you know, conversations and things that happened that literally didn't happen. They're just the power of the mind. It's incredible. I don't fully understand it, but the reality that we live in, that we all agree upon on this 3D world and whatnot, is only one aspect of it. And my mind had like transferred somewhere else or something, is what it seemed like. My body was here, and it was part of my mind would just leave and was living a different life. And I'd have conversations with my parents, my missus, and they'd tell me things that I'd said and done that I had no recollection of. And I was telling them things that I'd done and said that they were like, that didn't happen, for sure, it didn't happen.
Wow.
And so they got me on medication, and I ended up getting better from it. And the medication helped, but it was just my self-discipline and my belief in myself. Yeah, well, just my belief in myself. I was like, I knew, as low as I was and where I was, I know who I am. I think that's the biggest thing. Understanding yourself you're probably right. I think that's where it all comes from, is knowing who you are first. Because other than that, if you don't know who you are and what your purpose is, you're never going to have any sort of direction, no matter how high or low you are.
No.
I remember saying this, like when I was talking about before about like how I started at a point in my life seeing suffering as like a superpower in a way.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my mate at the time, and so like after that whole drug thing and whatnot, I had a really good group of mates from school. I lost almost every single mate, not from that, but events that followed and whatnot. So many people just stopped understanding me, and you know, a lot of people went one way or the other with it.
Of course.
Some people were really supportive, some people were just like not understanding. Yeah, I lost lots of really good mates with that. But I remember saying to one of my mates at the time I knew at the time couldn't comprehend it, but I was saying to him, I was using Mike Tyson as a reference, but I was pondering the thought of like maybe someone's potential success is directly relevant with their suffering. And that can't make sense to someone that's what I can't make sense of someone that's in Ethiopia or someone like that has nothing, will just suffer and suffer and suffer. But maybe their ultimate goal is owning a home with a farm and there's whatever the fuck it is, you know what I mean? But I do really think there is some direct line between suffering and success. And people say sacrifice, same shit. Sacrifice, suffering, there's some direct relation to success.
Yeah, without a doubt. I almost feel like when you look at any successful fighter, athlete, whatever, when you look at their story, there's always a point where they were just absolutely down in the dumps, as deep, as dark as it can go. And that's how they dug deep from there to become that successful person. I know it is the cliche, but when you talk to people about it and you really see what they went through to become who they are, it's when you really get an understanding of what it takes to be successful. And I would give a fair bit of credit to your to Brianna, your partner, and your family, mate, because to stick by you through that and to still be there with you and still like love you and support you, like that's stuff that it gives me goosebumps. You can't.
Man, my family, like
say?
I could talk about my family, and like I'm surrounded by so much love, bro. My coaches, my team, my family. But my missus like is a little angel, bro. I've always called her like a ray of sunshine in my life, but the amount of shit that she's dealt with and been able to continue to like just fucking march through, she's a soldier. Like I say these days, bro, it's been for a long period. After that period, and I saw people leave me and whatever else, I started saying to myself, I don't want anyone to be a friend or someone that's in my circle that I wouldn't have in the trenches with me. Like literally in war, in the fucking trench with me. Someone that will die before I die, that will sacrifice themselves, that will go till the end no matter what. And my missus is like the definition of that. And I'm very grateful and very lucky to be surrounded by people like that. But I know I know as well, it's because I have a really good heart and they see my heart and I put the love out there and I want to give. And as much as I fuck up, I've never done it with bad intentions or with like a selfish intentions. It's always just been selfish actions from, you know.
Well, as I say, like-minded people find each other. So as you're finding yourself and understanding the good parts of your personality and displaying them more, you're attracting more people like that. But as we sort of take a little bit of a lighter note from the inspirational story, I'd put it, as we take a bit of a lighter note, now you've got the rematch with Wade Ryan coming up.
Mm-hmm.
This rematch can lead to great things. It's another chance for you to right a wrong. How are you going to prepare differently for this fight compared to the last fight to get yourself in the best position to win this fight?
The two biggest parts to it for me would be focus and sacrifice. I think they're two, like what I just sort of discussed with sacrifice and the direct line between sacrifice and success. Focus as well is a superpower. The ability to be able to focus on a single task and to be able to, that's what meditation and breathing and these things help me physically practice as well. To be able to just hone in, zone in, and have that one thing on your mind that you're working towards. Because when I fought Wade Ryan the first time, I was thinking about the press conference and what I was going to say and this and that and all this shit that doesn't fucking mean nothing. Because that's what I learned from that fight, that everything outside of me and him in that ring literally doesn't exist. So that's been a big part of just honing my focus and continuing to develop my focus over these last couple of years since that first loss. And then the sacrifices and the discipline. Something that, again, my partner and my family understand, and I continue to voice it more and set these boundaries where I'm able to make the right sacrifices and to look after my family. Another example, will be I'm going to go up to Queensland probably this week. I'm going to go do some rounds up there, just book myself a flight, go spend 3 days up there and do 10 rounds a day of sparring or something for 3 days, do 30 rounds over 3 days, and just forcing the uncomfortable sacrifices.
Well, that's incredible. I really do wish you all the best for that Wade Ryan rematch. It's going to be an incredible fight, big card. And just as we move into the final part of the interview, Koen, the floor is yours. Say what you will. I want this to be a legacy for Miles and Bowie, Brianna, your family, when they're all older, especially your kids, and they look back and they watch this. I want you to have the floor and say what you will to them. Who's dad? What's his legacy? Who he wants to be? It's all yours, mate.
Yeah, well, I'll start it to you. The one thing that got me through the first Wade Ryan fight, I would have been stopped in round, I think, 6 or 7 if it wasn't for my kids and for my family and the love and the superpower that they give me through that love. Because in that round 6, 7, I remember being hurt and in my mind being exhausted and wanting to quit, and then thinking, my missus is watching this at home and my boy will watch this one day. And I can't quit. There is no chance I can quit for these people. And that's what this is all about for me, is that no matter what the size of the hurdle, the shape and form of the hurdle, you just got to keep jumping. There is no quitting. If you have a goal and a purpose and something you want to achieve and do, you really can do it. And it's one of those cliche things. You really, honestly can. I'm living a fucking video game right now. I'm living in a video game. I fight people for money. I'm going to be world champion. I'm going to be multiple-time world champion. I'm going to be multi-millionaire. I'm going to give back to the people that deserve to be given back to and create a community that, as much as anything, is based on love and giving and growth. So all that stuff is achievable to myself and to anyone that wants to do it if it's something you really want to do.
Koen, thank you very much for coming on the corner, mate. And I wish you all the best in your rematch in life, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
All the best.
Thanks, man.